Hello, my name is Catherine Kay and I am the Education Officer at Dove Cottage and the Wordsworth Museum, and today I'm just going to talk briefly about an extract of Wordsworth's poetry. It's become quite a famous and well-known piece, but it is an extract from one of Wordsworth's much longer poems, from his autobiographical poem The Prelude, which he worked on for kind of over 50 years of his life, and in fact wasn't published until after his death, although the first complete version, if you like, comes from his time at Dove Cottage. And the first two books of The Prelude deal with Wordsworth's Lake District childhood and the adventures that he had in the landscape that become so important to him. And he credits these experiences with turning him into the man he becomes, and perhaps more importantly from our point of view, I suppose, the poet he becomes. And this little extract involves a time where he borrows, maybe, a boat and takes it for a row on Ullswater. So in terms of plot, just so you've got a bit of background, Wordsworth is a schoolboy and he's by himself by the shores of Ullswater in the evening, and he comes across a little rowing boat and quite likes the idea of taking it for a row. He kind of knows the boat's going to be there, but he also knows he doesn't really have permission to take it. So there's a kind of bit of a fight between Wordsworth's kind of moral conscience and his wish to go for a row. And he describes it in the poem when he decides to take the boat as an act of stealth and troubled pleasure, which I think is my favourite ever bit of Wordsworth. So there is a little bit of a seed sown of kind of guilt and trouble. But then that kind of disappears and we get this beautiful, very Wordsworthian view of nature at peace in the evening with the starlight twinkling. The boy Wordsworth gets into his boat and starts to row. He describes the way the moonlight kind of glitters on the water. He's proud of his rowing skill. And just as he gets going, there's a kind of change in tone in the poem, and we get this sudden, he says his boat went heaving through the water like a swan, which is lovely, that idea of kind of gliding and yet a lot going in under the surface. And then shortly after that we have a sudden change of tone and we get, when from behind that craggy steep till then the bound of the horizon, a huge cliff as if with voluntary power instinct upreared its head. So all of a sudden we get this kind of much more sinister vision of an element of nature almost rearing up against Wordsworth with its own choice, so we get a nice bit of personification of the landscape. This then continues to happen. So we get voluntary power instinct upreared its head, and then we get a speeding up of the pace from Wordsworth. I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature, the huge cliff rose up between me and the stars, and still with measured motion, like a living thing, strode after me. So it gets increasingly sinister that he's kind of being pursued almost by this kind of image of the mountain, an image of nature. Perhaps not surprisingly, Wordsworth is frightened by this and turns around and takes the boat back, puts it back where he's found it, and then goes home. And you might think that that would be the end of it. Lesson learned, don't take boats without asking permission first. But because this is Wordsworth, and because nature and the landscape become such a part of him and his imagination, really in some ways that's only the beginning of the experience, because what he goes on to say is that for nights afterwards he's kind of haunted by this memory, and he ends the extract by saying, "Huge and mighty forms that do not live like living men moved slowly through my mind by day and were the trouble of my dreams." So we get quite a sinister end to the bit of poetry. You might think that that would make it a negative experience, but in fact it doesn't. This is what Wordsworth describes later in the Prelude as one of his spots of time, and the idea of a spot of time is that it's something that happens to you, might not be life-changing in itself, but it keeps hold of your imagination and it retains its kind of power to impress you years after the event. And Wordsworth believes as an adult that it's those moments, and it's from these moments that we can draw hope, consolation, nourishment, if you like, for things that happen to us in future years. And it's really for that reason that the experience is important, rather than just kind of in and of itself.